Some places are famous because they made folks rich. Death Valley is famous because people barely made it out alive. In 1849, a group of pioneers took what they thought was a shortcut into this wasteland. They ditched their wagons, ate their oxen, and staggered out with just enough strength to name it. Death Valley rarely hands out second chances, but its deadly beauty forever left its mark. In October 1849, during the height of the California Gold Rush, a group of pioneers were desperately seeking a shortcut from Salt Lake City to the gold fields of California and a new life of prosperity. It was late in the year, and with the snowfall, it was much too late to cross the Sierra Nevada mountains safely. They had heard about the Old Spanish Trail, a route that would pass through the same area that later became Las Vegas, circumventing the south of the Sierra Nevada, and was considered safe for travel in winter. Captain Jefferson Hunt, a veteran soldier and pioneer, agreed to guide 107 wagons of immigrants down the Old Spanish Trail to California. It was a slow, methodical pace. So slow that many in the party began to voice their displeasure and eventually voted to split from their guide. Near present-day Enterprise, Utah, 100 of the 107 wagons followed rumors and a hand-sketched map across brutal, arid terrain, believing it would save them 500 miles of travel and precious time. Instead, they found themselves stranded in an unforgiving landscape, nearly losing their lives to heat, thirst, and exhaustion. Some wagons would turn around and rejoin the main group under Captain Hunt, but a few moved on alone, including around 20 wagons carrying families, children, and everything they owned. Armed with some half-baked rumors, a hand-sketched map, and an unhealthy amount of optimism, they marched straight into the world's worst wrong turn. Supplies ran out fast. Oxen collapsed. Wagons were burned for firewood. People stripped the land for anything edible. As desperation grew, the group split again. A group that called themselves the Jayhawkers headed west toward the Panamint Mountains, while the Bennett-Arkin party turned south toward what they hoped was civilization. In a stroke of luck, both groups converged at present-day Death Valley Junction and arrived near Furnace Creek on Christmas Eve, 1849. After resting at Furnace Creek, the groups went their separate ways once again. The Jayhawkers headed north, moving towards the Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes. Here, they decided to leave their wagons and walk the rest of the way. Eventually, they crossed the Panamint Mountains, and to safety, following an old indigenous trail. The Bennett-Arkin party tried to cross the mountains via the Warm Springs Canyon, but failed. They were in trouble. Two very young men, William Lewis Manley and John Rogers, volunteered to hike out for help, walking over 300 miles to Mission San Fernando and back, carrying what little supplies they could find on the backs of two very exhausted horses and a one-eyed donkey. When the survivors finally stumbled out weeks later, they were gaunt, broken, and forever changed. After finally leaving the valley, one of them is said to have looked back at the scorched earth and muttered the words that stuck. "Goodbye, Death Valley." The so-called shortcut that had lured the lost 49ers away from Captain Hunt's wagon train proved to take almost 4 months and nearly cost the lives of everyone involved. In a twist of irony, those under the watchful eye of Captain Hunt arrived safely in Southern California with almost no incidents. They weren't the first to cross the land, but they might have been the first to understand just how unforgiving it could be. So, after all of that dying, starving, and generally making terrible life choices, you're probably asking yourself what's left to actually see out here. Turns out, a hell of a lot. At Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes, they figured out the hard way that wagons don't exactly glide across the sand. So, They torched the evidence and hopped the Hill-Toe Express all the way across the desert. Now these dunes act as a perfect backdrop for Instagram photos and senior portraits. Furnace Creek holds the official record for the highest air temperature ever recorded on Earth, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, measured in July 1913. Despite this extreme climate, Furnace Creek became a central hub for early visitors and prospectors drawn by the promise of mineral wealth. Today, Furnace Creek has an air-conditioned visitor center. Back in 1849, it was just located nearby Traverton Springs, one of the few places where water bubbled to the surface. It saved the lives of pioneers staggering across the desert on Christmas Eve, half crazed from thirst. Nearby, Old Stovepipe Wells was a crucial rest stop, strategically located along the trail to vital water resources. This historic outpost served as a life-saving oasis, helping early travelers survive their perilous journeys through Death Valley. Death Valley offers fascinating geological wonders, such as the Devil's Golf Course, a vast expanse of jagged salt formations that have been sculpted by erosion over millions of years. Just a short drive away is Badwater Basin, North America's lowest point, sitting 282 feet below sea level. During rare rainfalls, the basin fills with reflective pools, creating an extraordinary but temporary spectacle that highlights Death Valley's remarkable contrast. Artist Palette showcases vivid colors created by minerals like iron oxide and manganese oxidizing over thousands of years, painting the hillsides with extraordinary natural pigments. The nearby natural bridge, carved by relentless forces of erosion, demonstrates the powerful processes constantly reshaping Death Valley's rugged landscape. Hiking these trails provides a tangible connection to the park's dynamic geological history. In the late 1800s, borax mining emerged as a major industry, fundamentally reshaping Death Valley. Harmony Borax Works was at the heart of this operation. Famously known for its 20-mule teams, miners used these animals to haul heavy loads of borax over 165 miles of scorching desert to reach the railway station. As borax operations exploded in the late 1800s, a few very tough souls made a living supporting the miners and haulers braving Death Valley's extremes. One of them was Jimmy Dayton, who worked for the Borax Company and ran a way station near Furnace Creek, offering water, supplies, and the occasional lifeline to anyone desperate enough to cross this land. He died in 1899. As a bonus, if you have the time, just outside Death Valley sits the ghost town of Rhyolite. Rhyolite began in 1904 when legendary prospector Frank "Shorty" Harris found gold in the nearby mountains. The mining town quickly grew into a bustling city complete with banks, hotels, stores, and more. At its peak, over 5,000 people lived here. But within a decade, the gold veins dried up, and by 1916, Rhyolite was all but abandoned, leaving behind these haunting ruins that tell a vivid story of boom and bust in the harsh desert. Shorty Harris and Jimmy Dayton were lifelong friends. They spent their lives chasing fortune under the desert sun, and when the dust finally settled, they were buried side by side on the west side of Death Valley. Two stubborn spirits who never really left the valley behind. At Zabriskie Point, visitors gaze upon layers and layers of eroded rock formations, revealing millions of years of Earth's geological past. This spot became iconic after photographer Edward Weston captured its dramatic landscapes in the 1930s. Dante's View, perched over 5,000 feet above sea level, offers a breathtaking look across the entire valley, from the salt flats to the distant mountain ranges. It's a fitting location to contemplate the extremes of nature, an awe-inspiring culmination of Death Valley's incredible landscapes. Decades later, the battered relics of Death Valley's chaotic past would become the foundation for one of America's most stunning national parks. In 1933, it became a national monument under President Herbert Hoover. And in 1994, finally became a national park. Death Valley didn't just break people, it built legends out of their mistakes. And somehow, it's still out here, daring the next idiot to try their luck. From pioneer's misfortune to a national treasure, Death Valley's story is one of extremes, endurance, and fascinating human history.